Rang nahat na mane wanto. Mahatma wa matta tunundale.
पांजा खुला दे तेरा सबको नाश कर देगा
सर भाई हमको तुम्हारे मदद की सख्त जरूरत है
हमारी टीम इस प्रॉब्लम को फिक्स करने में ज्यादा वक्त नहीं लगाएगी
वो जाग रहा है
अब अगर तुमन अपने मुर्दा लोगन ला संभाल नहीं पाए तुमन में से एक को जल्दी जिंदा ना तुम्हें लगता है वहाँ अंदर सेफ है?
Indians have loved the concept of zombies. The latest production by Red Chillies Entertainment, Betaal, a Netflix original series, comes to you in the best possible cinema-like visual experience of Dolby Vision Hdr and an unmatched immersive audio experience that will literally take you inside the story with Dolby Atmos. Hello and welcome to our special show, Behind the Mix, with me, Karma Paljar. Joining us today, writer and director of Betaal, Patrick Graham, Siddharth Gandhi, who's the colorist, he's also joining us. Anirban Sengupta, the sound designer for this series, is joining us. And Sudipto Sadhu-Khan, who's the mixing engineer, he's also with us here on the show. Not often do we speak to backroom people who make the drama come alive in our living rooms. And this truly is an experience for us. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. The first and the foremost question, of course, a lot of us have is that since we are talking about technology, as movie makers, is the content creation process any different from when you make, create streaming content for the living room, Patrick?
Yes, I think that one has to be more aware of the massive variation in sound systems that people at home will have. So from mobile phones to laptop speakers to the best entertainment setups in people's living rooms, it's hard to there isn't really a standardized sound that you can hope for because everybody's got a different sound system. So I would assume that for sound mixers and sound designers, that's one of the most challenging things about creating a Dolby Atmos soundscape for the viewer at home. So that's obviously something that we need to kind of bear in mind when we're doing sound design for these OTT platform shows.
Right. So let's now go straight to Betaal, this Netflix original series. Patrick, I would like to know your experience using Dolby Vision Hdr in this, and this, of course, for the visual aspect, and also storytelling, and using the Dolby Atmos for audio. How different was it?
Well, on the set of Betaal, it was very much kind of business as usual. We needed the best possible recorded sync sound and on-set sound, and our DOP, he did his job lighting as beautifully as he could, regardless of, at that stage, we didn't actually know that we would be outputting to HDR. It was like some kind of distant dream that I had because I enjoy watching Dolby Vision on my TV at home. So when I heard that in post that we were going to kind of upgrade everything to Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision, I was very happy about it, of course. So my experience at that time was me and Sid had been working in SDR, right, for about, I guess, 25% of the entire coloring process. And then we got the go-ahead to move up into Dolby Vision HDR. So when these guys showed me for the first time the HDR pass on the footage, I was blown away. I was like, oh my God, it looks, so much better than it did before. Also on the amazing monitor that they have at Red Chillies Color. So I was super impressed and really thrilled that we could have that kind of Dolby Vision standard. As for the Dolby Atmos sound, of course, for horror, it's incredibly important. I mean, always sound design is important, but for horror, it's all about the experiential kind of experience of watching and listening. So Dolby Atmos is so great because you can be playing with sound with a lot more freedom and really putting it behind people's heads and the side and really making the most out of your atmospheric soundscape. So I think, I was very, very happy to be working in Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision as well.
Yes, and talking about the Netflix original series, if you watch it, the opening sequence will blow your mind. It's worth the watch.
Mamat niyang. Kal karintro. Mawa arjitun kenja.
Siddharth Gandhi is the colorist, and he's also with us. Siddharth, first and foremost, you might want to tell our viewers what a colorist does using the Dolby Vision Hdr. How does it work?
See, basically, as a colorist, we have to be, very careful about, grading footages like what we have in Betaal. That director's visions and cinematographer's vision is, is taken to that honesty that their audience see the visuals exactly how they intended it to be. And keeping this in mind, Dolby Vision basically uses that dynamic metadata from the content and the ambient sensors in the TV to detect the conditions of the room and finally intelligently displays every detail of the content. So basically, Dolby Vision's main advantage was that it offers unprecedented image reproduction. Black is black, and the peak brightness can be reproduced more realistically with colors that are typically saturated in the conventional standard dynamic range. So Dolby Vision played a very good part while grading that Betaal show. Yeah.
Right. So Siddharth, from what you're telling me, I, as a layman, would understand that Dolby Vision HDR is much about richer colors. There would be more contrast, I guess, and more details. When it comes to the black colors, we'd see more black, I guess. And when it comes to the brighter images, we'd see it brighter. I don't know if I'm framing it correct, but how would it help with the visual storytelling?
Basically, in visual storytelling, when earlier we used to color grade films in standard dynamic range, we were limited to a very limited color gamut, and that kind of limited our creativity up to a certain level. But in Dolby Vision, if you ask me to tell you in a layman theory, Dolby Vision kind of stretches that particular color gamut at a level where you see richer blacks and brighter brights. For example, if you see in SDR, if I say you have been given 2 to 3 colors to play with, but now when it comes to Dolby Vision, it's like you can play with 100 odd colors.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, Siddharth, if I did not have Dolby Vision HDR, what would I be missing?
If you don't have Dolby Vision HDR, I would certainly you would be certainly missing those details in the blacks and the colors. What the cinematographer and our director and me myself, what we actually intended to show you, you won't be seeing that in particular for sure. The blacks would be for sure, so they will be hazy, but in Dolby Vision HDR, they will be much deeper blacks, and the contrast would be such that you will have a truly immersive experience in that.
Brilliant. And Patrick, as a creator of this cinema, at least, of this particular Netflix series, are there some instances that you'd like to share with our viewers about the making and how Dolby technologies in particular helped you deliver the series closer to your original intent?
Sure. Well, inherently, because of course of the genre and the setting, it's within this old building with not very many kind of light sources. So a lot of the time, the characters themselves have to carry their own lights around, whether it be a torch, an electronic lantern, or even an old candle-lit lantern, And what that created for us is many kind of individual small but very intense light sources. So like if somebody's carrying a lantern or somebody's carrying a torch, and one of the most obvious things for, again, almost like a layman like me, because I'm not an expert in photography, but one of the most noticeable things for me is seeing the those kind of light sources of the lantern or the candle really jumping off the screen, and the latitude between that brightest spot and the kind of dark of the corridor in the background was so intense, and it really jumped off the screen. So I think with a horror, which is all about kind of contrast and shadow and darkness and kind of small light sources, I think that really helped to establish the atmosphere a lot. That's one of the things that really sticks out in my mind. And then the other thing, of course, is the huge latitude you have between the darkest point and the brightest point. I mean, you can really see like a spooky face within the shadows that ordinarily perhaps you would not be able to see because it would just be too dark. So there was a lot of stuff that we could do also in the kind of midtones that I thought was really interesting. It literally jumps off the screen as far as
Right. On that note, let's shift to something which is one of the most important things. I think I would say half the experience in this genre, that is horror, about sound. So how do you go about visualizing the play of sound in a series like Betaal? Anirban, so can you give our audience a breakdown of how you approached audio design when you went into production and then in post-production? Was there any pre-planning?
Yes, there was. First of all, I have to thank my production mixer, Ankita, for doing a wonderful job. He's really trying situations at shoot, and she got really good dialogues recorded amongst all those, blasts and screaming and everything. And the main thing is when we started working on this and we knew that we were going to do it in Atmos, Atmos just gives you whatever you can think of in terms of audio, Atmos gives you the opportunity that you can lay it down. So it's very simple, there's no limitation. For one, we have a vertical separation now. So there's a lot of depth which can be created with that. And two is it gives you a scope for a lot of details in your work, really minute details, which is not possible in a 7.1 format or a 5.1 format. So I think one of the main advantages of Atmos was that we could really, go into this really minute details, and then overall it came out very well, I think. And also when you fold it back, when people will hear it in stereo on their phones or on their headphones, they will get a very, very good mix, because Atmos really allows you to do that. The fold back is very good in 5.1 and stereo.
Yeah, interesting facts. If you look at the whole series, because I watched it through and through, there is a use of overhead reverbs to create some kind of a depth, I guess. I wouldn't understand too much into that. Yes. You also use a lot of dialogues and zombie voices as objects. Now, that is something that we would like to understand, because I think, treating sound as objects, some of us have never heard before. Mm-hmm. And this, I'm told, is a core attribute of Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, so the reason why we did that is that we wanted to get the viewer also to feel that impending sense of doom all the time, like you're surrounded by these zombies, there is no escape. So that was only possible if you could put it in these various objects and on top and all around. So, because of Atmos, we could do that. If it was just a 5.1 mix, that would not have been possible. It was always to give a sense of this doom, this total disaster which is happening all around you. And there's pretty much no escape from it. So Atmos really helped us in, getting that kind of a feel.
Could you also elaborate on the use of low frequencies in the sound channels that you did in this?
Yeah, so Dolby Atmos allows you to put a good amount of lows on your surrounds and all, which you were not able to do in 5.1 stereo before. So according to, after Dolby Atmos came into scene, we can put a lot of lows in your surrounds, on your riverheads, like what we call an object. So whatever you're putting in an object, you can put a lot of low frequencies over there. So all the jump scares, all the blasts, all the gunshots used to be front heavy before. But now it doesn't have to be front heavy. I mean, from wherever the gun is, from wherever the character is using the gun, you can put the gun over there because you are going to hear all the frequencies from there. So that's something Dolby Atmos has, let us do now.
Right. And Sudipto, as a mixing engineer, at what stage of the project you come into play for the benefit of the viewers who don't know? And what is it that you do here?
For this project, actually, we have started like working together only from the beginning when the post-production started. Because we are mixing it in Atmos, so how much details we are going to play with, all those things needed to be measured, and it was for small screen, so we had to take care of the output so that it can play in small speakers. I mean, the mixer speakers work in the studio. So it was kind of a collaborative process from the beginning only, and we have started working together only, and we have worked like 3 to 4 months.
I think more than 4 months. Total 6 months we worked. And so I used to basically just design the scenes and just bring it to him, and then sit there in the studio and figure out, okay, if we need more or if we need less. And then used to call Patrick also, and he used to come and just watch a couple of scenes and say if it's working or not working. So normally the way we do it is if you break it down to an episode, we do the full episode and then we call the director. But at this, there was a lot of collaboration which happened between the three of us. And Patrick used to come and just see like 5 minutes of a scene, and then come again next day or after 2-3 days. So he was very helpful in that sense. And I think we started building more and more that we started building those scenes. I mean, it took us nearly, I think, 1.5 months to do the first episode. It was 4 episodes, but it's like 4 feature films. I mean, the kind of work which went in each of these episodes. And it's only when you're doing it on Atmos that you realize that you can pack in more, you can do more, and you start thinking more and more about each scene. And I think the end result is pretty decent. So,
yes, it is. When it comes to the sound, it's brilliant. Anirban, what are the challenges that you guys faced?
No challenges as such. I mean, it's to be very honest, I don't come from a background of horror and zombies. So Patrick had given me a couple of references, and I didn't want to do anything which you've already heard before. I didn't want people to say, oh, I've heard from this series or this show. So the challenge was making those voices a little unique. So I think those were the main challenges. Otherwise, it was a lot of fun, and there were a lot of to and fro between me and Patrick about a lot of scenes, and so I think I wouldn't call them challenges, but it was just a very nice creative process, and I'm very happy with the end result. And most of the voices that we did is we recorded our own voices and processed them. So it's mainly me shouting and my team shouting it and making those zombie noises. So that was a lot of fun.
So since Patrick, you guys had to do a lot of back and forth. Did you guys, any of you, turn into zombies by the end of this?
Well, I did, because I was up till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the night making zombie noises in my house. My wife can testify to that. But yeah, it was really good fun.
What kind of zombie noises were you making? Can you make it here for us?
That is a little difficult right now, but whatever you're hearing on the series is our voices, and we just process them a lot. I mean, like all the we found, all the growling and everything, we just recorded them and processed them.
I think you can if you concentrate, Anirban. Just one nice, clear zombie sound.
Maybe at the end of it, because then after that, my throat is going to go, for sure.
Patrick, how was this entire process?
I really enjoyed the process. I always enjoy kind of the sound design, and a lot of the time, the sound design kind of makes the edit. If an edit isn't working, sometimes it's the sound that really makes it work. So it's always a really satisfying and creative process. And as I say, I always really enjoy it. So yeah, with the Dolby Atmos sound design, I think it was really fun. Anirban and his team did a great job, and yeah, coming into the studio and listening what magic had been created and going over it and making the odd suggestion. I thought it was a really smooth and satisfying sound design process, and I know how hard these guys worked to get it there. And I think, without getting other people into trouble, they were probably the most efficient post-production department.
And Anirban was sharing with us, saying it's different. Usually a director would not involve himself at a particular stage, but there you were going almost second, third day, and listening to what was being produced. What was the need for this?
Right. Well, for one, the Patrick is pretty clear about what kind of feel and mode he wants on the audio design. And I was feeding off him a lot because he is very knowledgeable about these things. I mean, he's pretty much, I think, seen each and every series and film about horror and zombies. So I was feeding a lot from him. I was trying to take out a lot of information from him. So I always wanted to feel whether I'm going on the right direction or not. I mean, of course, it's the jump scares and all are the easiest things to do. I mean, just make a lot of noise, but it's the rest of the stuff which is very difficult. I mean, before and after. So it was very important for us to get that right from the beginning because we were using a lot of tracks and a lot of sounds and everything. Sometimes there may have been instances where I've gone overboard and he comes in and says, "Okay, this is too much." So it was stuff like that. I didn't want to just come with 400 tracks and give it to Sudhit and say mix. It had to be a very collaborative process between us three. So all of us knew at the exact moment where we stood and how this design is shaping up and whether we need to go back and change anything because after a couple of scenes something else is playing or something. The design has changed a little bit. So that's why do this with him more or less every other day. It's always great to get feedback because he is very knowledgeable about this particular genre.
Patrick, since you were so hands-on, going back and forth, is there any particular scene reference, that you can break down for us in terms of the sound that you guys together created that added to the overall experience, that made it better?
Yeah, sure. I think one scene that comes immediately to mind was maybe more of one of the most challenging scenes, which did require us to kind of do a bit of back and forth just to get it absolutely right. And I think that was in episode 3 where the little girl's mother basically comes back from the dead and attacks her. And I feel like we kind of went over it a few times, didn't we, Anirban? And it was kind of it was very hard just to get quite right because you needed the sound at the beginning of the nails dragging on the concrete across the floor. Then when she actually kind of emerges, we were finding it hard to get exactly the right kind of throaty shriek from this undead woman. And I think that Anirban did a great job in creating that shriek. I won't ask how, but it was it actually, now when I watch it, I really like the vocalization of that, of how the mother sounds, and also there's a nice backing of the scary music, and it's kind of rising to a crescendo. So it took us, I think that was probably one of the most challenging scenes that we worked on to get right. But now I think it works very well.
Right. I'd like to just go back very quickly because I thought of a question which I wanted to ask earlier to Siddharth. Siddharth, as far as vision is concerned, did you use the scene-by-scene optimization? Something, again, I'm told that it's unique to Dolby Vision Hdr during color grading?
Yes, if you see episode number 1, it kind of it starts with the evening exteriors, and then we kind of set the Betaal story in the first episode, and then in the episode 2, the most part of the shoot is in the night, and when all those modern army soldiers get into the temple, and then you have absolutely no light over there because it's meant to be like that. But in order to get those details right, in order for you to enjoy it well, scene by scene optimization was very much necessary in that.
Now we move on to an interesting aspect of India. I guess that can be said about the entire world. I mean, India is a mobile first country, Patrick, and a lot of content is consumed on the go, which means most of the people are mobile phones, tablets. That's where the screen, the small screen, is where people are. So when you create content for both the visual and audio perspective, how has it been different? How did you consider this aspect?
That's a really interesting question. And actually, to be quite honest, I'm slightly ambivalent towards that, because as a filmmaker, I want people to be watching on the best possible monitor or screen. You know, I mean, nowadays it's normal that people aren't consuming the big blockbusters just on cinema screens. They're doing it at home. Like, I would hope as a filmmaker, people are using the best screen available to them. However, I have to acknowledge the fact that a lot of people, as you say, do watch it on their mobile phones or on a tablet or on a smaller laptop screen. I don't alter my shooting style according to whether thinking about monitor size, honestly speaking. I suppose one of the benefits of computer screens is that, and maybe I'm mistaken about this, but sometimes they're actually kind of better quality than a lot of TVs out there. They give a more accurate picture, perhaps. Same with some of the newest smartphones as well. So I don't know, Sid, maybe you disagree with this, but at least the kind of color and resolution on some of these computer screens and phone screens are actually quite good compared to a lot of domestic television sets. But generally, I prefer it if people watched it on nice big screens. When it comes to sound, that's kind of interesting as well, because I think a lot of people would be listening to their sound on headphones, which is great for horror because it's so immersive. So yeah, it's a tough question. I prefer if I cannot watch something for longer than 5 minutes on a smartphone. I just can't. But I know a lot of people do. So.
Yeah, that's for people like us who love cinema. If you don't have a good standard, good big television, and if you don't have a 5.1 surround system at your home, then it's pointless watching a good movie on that. On that note, Anirban, I come to you with the sound. You said that Dolby Atmos helped create a better 5.1 experience and the stereo experience as well. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more about how?
So they have some of their own proprietary technology, which, you know, when they do a down mix from the Atmos to 5.1 in stereo, it just makes the whole process much more tighter when it comes in respect to sound, and you sort of get all the details and all are very, very clear, even when you're hearing it just on a stereo on your phone or whatever, in stereo or in 5.1. It's a technology which they have, Dolby Atmos is made, so it's their proprietary technology, I guess, and it just sounds better. I mean, when we were before we started rendering all the mixes through Atmos, we heard it in a normal field, and it didn't sound as good. The minute you switch on the Atmos renderer or whatever, it just made the mix sound better, you know.
Right. And as content creators, do you think Dolby Atmos, or if you look at Dolby Vision Hdr, do you think these technologies have changed the living room experience of watching movies for good, Patrick?
Yes, I think that Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision have both honestly revolutionized how we're consuming content right now. Just from personal experience, I can see it made more of a difference to have Dolby Vision to me than it did to upgrade from 1080 to 4K TV. What makes it the most obvious difference in picture quality to me is the actual Dolby Atmos at the HDR levels. And that's also true with playing video games as well that support HDR. That's the main difference that I can see is the HDR rather than the resolution. And yeah, as for the Dolby Atmos, yeah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, with every year that passes, our home entertainment systems get more and more advanced to the extent where, to be quite honest, I don't really enjoy going to the cinema. I prefer to wait to see the film that I want to see in my own kind of comfort of my home theatre system. I think my setup is just as nice as to watch as going to the cinema, unless it's a massive IMAX production.
But it does depend on the streaming service, isn't it? So we are dependent, whether we have the technology on our televisions, on our home theater systems or not. But it does depend on a lot of other factors, whether the streaming service has that technology or not. So these things have to be taken into account, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The same question to Sudipto, about how Dolby Atmos or Dolby Vision Hdr technologies have changed the living room experience. Do you think it has?
Yeah, Dolby, I mean, after you have made something in Dolby Atmos and the translation is so good and you can play with a lot of detail that, what I told you before. I mean, it's really going to change how you have heard sound before. I mean, before that you couldn't hear so much details in your home speaker. I mean, it couldn't produce that because we couldn't play with that much of detail. So after Dolby Atmos has come into the play, we can sound can be much more detailed even for the small speakers what we use at home and all. So it's really, really great.
Just before we conclude, I've already heard from Anirban about his trouble with his wife for creating zombie sounds at night in his house. I dread to listen to a zombie sound at night, especially from Anirban. I would like to ask you all one by one if you have any spooky tales from the sets or during post-production, starting with you, Patrick.
Well, I suppose it's not really spooky, but it is quite horrific that on the sets we were shooting kind of beginning of monsoon in some quite, I suppose, wild areas of countryside. So we had scorpions, snakes, and even crabs. I didn't even realize crabs went around in the forest in Maharashtra, but apparently they do. So we had all these creepy crawlies everywhere, and you couldn't really see where they were or where you were going. So we did have a tent. The guy who was organizing the tents, he got stung by a scorpion. That was quite scary. And one of our leading actresses, Hannah, had a fly layer tapeworm in her eyes. That was so there was a second horror film going on behind the main horror film, and they involved lots of insects.
That must have been something. Anirban, any more interesting tales? And you've promised us a zombie sound at the end of this conversation. So over to you.
The scene which Patrick was talking about, which is also one of my favorite scenes where the girl's mother comes crawling out. So that is my voice mixed with the baby seals. So I'm really proud of that one. So next time you hear it again, you can hear me shouting and a baby seal with that.
Sudipto, anything to share?
Yeah, mostly, we have done a lot of processing on the voices. It's like maybe Landau's voice, it sounds like one voice, but he has like 4 layers, like animal growls and zombie processes. There are like 7 to 8 layers to voices. So, all those are really a good experience.
Did you get nightmares at night? Did you get those sounds played in your head at night when you're sleeping?
It's always around you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. Siddharth?
Karma, as a colorist, we are kind of always working in a dark room. Okay, it's never a moment where we are allowed to work in a lit environment. And then me as a very, I am a very good lover of horror films and all, and it's a good thriller, Betaal. Generally, I do not get nightmares, but yet there was this one instance where there is this scene where the VFX finally arrived from the VFX house, in which we can see that the girl is lying on the bed, and then there is this one preta kind of enters the room and crawls up to the ceiling. that scene basically gave chills down the spine. And that night I was, couldn't sleep, just thought of that scene throughout.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. This was indeed an insightful conversation on what goes on behind the mix and more. Well, if you haven't yet, do watch Betaal, a Netflix original series in Dolby Vision Hdr and Dolby Atmos. Remember, the fusion of Dolby Vision Hdr imaging and Dolby Atmos sound transforms your TV into an entertainment powerhouse.